Is this painting you're looking at right now good? Or is it bad? Alright, what about this one? Exhibited in the same exact year. Is it better because its forms and figures are more clearly defined? Or is this one better because it captures a fleeting moment recorded just as the artist witnessed it? Its brushwork much more lively and colorful. When Impressionist paintings are exhibited in museums today and sold for millions at auction, no one questions their legitimacy as works worthy of attention and esteem. But when they were exhibited in Paris in 1874, they were regarded as unfinished, rubbish, and renegade. With the way art history has evolved, or in the view of some, devolved, how should we understand these ancient styles in contrast to the new, contemporary critics? Why are they so special? What should we think of them? Why should we think of them as something special? This is why we need to learn about Impressionism in art. This was an art style that didn't exactly fall from the sky. But coincidentally, the paintings were more often than not created under one. A trademark of the art form that would now come to be known as Impressionist was that these paintings were painted outside of studio. That's right out in the open, or as the French said, en plein air. Unlike the usual paintings which were depicted year after year at the salon, whereby gradation was built layer by layer, Impressionist works were usually begun, if not completed, entirely outdoors. The artists used smaller canvases because they were easy to transport and finish quickly before the lighting or the weather changed. Artists were not new to the idea of painting out in the open. Dutch artists of the 17th century and even artists like John Constable, who won the hearts of many for his depictions of the countryside, had been using it for years. In France, where Impressionism was brewing, landscape paintings were usual practice. Artists wanted to capture Paris and the drama of politics and turn to the calm sceneries of nature. They experimented with new styles, they tried new brushwork, and worked with brighter colors. But landscapes weren't held to that much of a high standard, especially in the eyes of those in the academy who valued the study of ancient Greek and Roman art with strongly defined figures. This was the kind of art favored by the academy, art pulled from history and religion. They didn't want to see the regular, mundane activities of the people. In 1863, a special exhibition was organized to feature the works rejected by the Salon, including those who wanted to challenge themselves and paint the here and now. Artists like Edouard Manet, who would not really exhibit his art with the Impressionists, but he was friends with them, he endorsed their work, and they all got together to share their numerous interests and techniques. The artists who took part in the first Impressionist exhibition in 1874 had displayed their art within the salon and also were now fed up of having their work be rejected continuously. So, they got together and put up their own show in a studio of Felix Nadar, and they called themselves the Anonymous Society of Painters, Sculptors, etc. They made sure that these rules were followed, that there was no state involvement and no jury. Each of the artists were on their own path of exploring their ideas and concerns and were not really focused on forming a team or manifesto of any sort. But in general, we could say this group of artists were mostly painting scenes from modern life, cityscapes and landscapes by using brighter colors, uneven brushstrokes and looser forms. They seemed to give an air of impulse, so much that art critic Louis Leroy responded to the accuracy of Claude Monet's impression, Sunrise. To Leroy, the painting was merely an impression. It was sloppy, incomplete, and unsuitable for display. But a new critic cast the art form in a new, much better light, saying that it's lively, brisk, light captivating. What a rapid grasp of the object, and what an amusing facture. Its summary? Agreed, but how spot on the marks are. Well, as you know, the term Impressionism stuck, and so did the artists. Impressionist landscapes betrayed their place in time, showing the people in the latest fashions or enjoying leisure activities in the suburbs. The railway lines had made travelling much easier, and the Impressionists didn't hold back expressing these in their art, as well as the industrialization. Life was moving at a greater speed, and the art did too. The city of Paris too had changed into a much clearer and safer space, with huge public gardens and lots of light. The Impressionists adored light and repeatedly tried to capture its effects. They liked to show it hiding behind the clouds, or filtering through the trees, and especially reflecting on water. When painting interior scenes, they loved to include windows through which light could easily pass through. Because they were constantly capturing atmospheric occurrences that would change within a matter of minutes, the brush strokes were short, and the paintings had a sort of touch of improvisation to them. Monet often worked on multiple canvases at one time, shuffling between various scenes as the sun set or as the light changed. New and bright pigments were now being used. They mixed vivid colors in ways that were unusual at that time. Even shadows for that case didn't just be black or brown. Complementary colors were represented side by side to appear more vibrant and intense. An early review revealed that artists painted things not just as they are, but as they appear to be. A strong statement to the entire movement of Impressionism. To paint trees, you don't necessarily need to know about their structure in detail. You could just add rough smudges of greenish brown to give off the same effect. But not all Impressionists were the same. Edgar Degas used strong lines to detail human forms. He showed his subjects off-center in oblique, strange angles. The popular Japanese art of lots of open space can be seen in many Impressionist art forms. The Impressionist artists also involved more representation of women. Bertha Morisot participated in multiple Impressionist exhibitions and gave us an insight into the lives of well-to-do women. Impressionist artists painted women as a number of classes. They weren't depicted to be lying around nude on beds or sofas, but were depicted doing the tasks they actually did. By the end of the year, in 1886, the core members of the Impressionist group had evolved and began experimenting on their own new styles. By 1886, Impressionism had become a global idea, with artists from around the globe exploring similar ideas. What the Impressionist artists were able to capture, and what still captivates us, is not the world as you see it, but the world as only they saw it. It is the reason that last names like Degas or Monet still hold power, sell for millions at auctions, and draw thousands of people towards them at exhibitions. Now, when you look at an Impressionist work, you know that a person stood before a canvas, applied paint one bit at a time in their own distinct way. Impressionism was one of the first avant-garde art movements, rejecting tradition and promoting new ideas. In a museum of art that preceded it, Impressionist art is still really pleasant. It's not violent, emotional, or stressful. It is a treat for the eyes, giving us a throwback to the historical movements of the past.
Impressionist music. Sorry to disturb you from the wonderful video that you just watched, but now we'll be discussing about Impressionist music. Now, I don't know a whole lot about music, but I do know a whole lot about art. And it turns out that Impressionist art was very much similar to Impressionist music. So I can tell you a lot about that. So now let's look at when was the Impressionist period exactly. So the Impressionist period began in the 1870s to the 1880s with painters like Claude Monet and ended around 1920s to the 1930s. Of course, Impressionist music didn't just end there. It went on beyond that, and it's present in its various offshoots like Neo-Impressionism, but I like to think of the dates of Impressionism to coincide with that of Monet's painting, that is the famous Impressionism Sunrise, and ending with Monet's death, that is in 1926. So what is the style, or what are the features of Impressionistic music? Style of Impressionist music isn't deeply emotional and personal like the bulk of Romantic era music. So Romantic music was very much focused on storytelling with highly emotive themes. Everything from joy to sorrow to love to rage to anger and even death. But Impressionist music was something different from that. Impressionist music was sort of like a distant narrator, that person who stands away and tells you what's happening but doesn't really take part in the drama. They see the story unfold and they take a musical snapshot of it from a distance. They capture its essence and entirety, but they're not in there getting their hands dirty. The motto was, suggest or evoke, but do not describe. Claude Debussy and Maurice Ravel were the main men of Impressionist music. Clair de Lune is a spectacular example by the one and only Claude Debussy. They were both French composers active at the turn of the 20th century and much beyond that. Debussy didn't really like when his music was referred to as Impressionist. However, he much preferred the term symbolism when referring to his music, as that was a literary movement that very much inspired him. He even hated the term so much that he referred to people who used the term as imbeciles. Other composers who were influenced by Impressionism include Ernest Fanelli, Isaac Albéniz, Manuel de Falla, Eric Satie, Jean Ireland, and so on. So to conclude, the features of art and music both in the Impressionist period was somewhat similar, and both of them influenced each other in one way or the other. So with that, I conclude my video, and I hope you learned a lot about it and enjoyed the whole video about art as well as music. Thank you.